Okay, may I have a motion to reconvene, please? Thank you, John. Thank you, Rick. All in favor? Thank you. All right. Agenda questions. Please limit your questions at this time to resolutions under new business on the agenda. As a matter of fairness, you're asked to limit your questions to no more than one and your remarks to no longer than 3 minutes. If you're here representing a group, please identify yourself, the group, and your position in the group. If you're here as an individual, please give us your name and address. And please state the resolution that you are asking about or commenting on, please. This section of public participation will be limited to 15 minutes.
Evelyn Slother, it's regarding the park assessment. I just wanted to find out the letter that will be...
What is the resolution?
It's the status on programs or projects, right? The Dennis Fair, the park update presentation.
Yes. Because it's not associated with the resolution, Ms. Slother, if it's possible, if you could just hold your question until right after that park presentation. We're going to do questions and answers right after that.
Okay, great.
Is that okay?
Yep, perfect.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Superintendent's report. Good evening, everyone. Just a couple of things from me this evening. One is our kindergarten registration. We've opened the registration process for the 15-16 full-day kindergarten program that we have in district. We want to gather as much information as we can at this point to see what our population in kindergarten will be so we can determine what we need to do to make sure that we're ready for that. The process does consist of basic student enrollment information and a brief development survey. The forms need to be completed by March 9th is what we're looking for. It is an entirely online process this year, and a big thanks goes out to the principals who work real closely together to make sure that that information is out and keep those records. The second piece I wanted to bring up tonight was our academic decathlon team. Our academic decathlon students scored second place overall in the region, and we're moving on to the states. We had 41 individual awards, 7 honorable mentions, 9 bronze medals, 11 silver medals, 12 gold medals, and 2 overall high scorers at the competition. So our students absolutely made us proud. So I wanted to bring that up. You're welcome. Do we have an update on any open issues? Okay. Personnel.
I guess we're going to start off with our park update. All right, sure. You'll see on the agenda under personnel, we have a retirement for Jean Sluka. Just want to note some highlights of her career here with us. According to her supervisor, Ms. Lisa Rizzo, Jean will be a major loss to the department. She's worked with families pre-K through 12, and she served as a reliable and knowledgeable part of our child study team. She's mentored all new LDTCs, and she's helped with many initiatives beyond the child study team, like our Orton-Gillingham program, as well as our dyslexia mandate, and she will be very much missed. So, that's it.
Excellent.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
Shift a little bit. Yes. Presentation sound good.
Kevin, our testing coordinator, will introduce himself.
All right, good evening. My name is Kevin Holman. I am the principal at George Washington School and also the district testing coordinator. Tonight, Dennis and I are pleased to have the opportunity to just present you with some information about the park assessment, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. The park assessment is replacing the NJASC and the HESPA that was previously given. Certainly, we hope to give you the most accurate information, up-to-date information, because information that we receive from Park and from the state is updated pretty regularly, and also because social media is flooded with information that may not be as accurate as we hoped it would be.
And just to preface this presentation, this would be about the 4th presentation that we've had on either the Park or the Common Core standards. Christine Zimmerman, our Director of Curriculum, has been up here. Our continuity supervisors have been up here also. Previous Board of Ed meetings talking about these same topics. But this is the most updated information as of today. So here you'll see, and we'll talk about the structure of the test. We have our performance-based assessment, which will be administered from March 2nd to March 27th. And we have our end-of-year assessment, which will be administered from April 27th to May 22nd. Okay, these are the administration windows. Building principals will be reaching out to families this Friday through email to tell you specifics about their buildings.
Just a quick comparison of the ask and HESPA that students took last year, and certainly the part they'll take this school year. Last year was a transitional assessment, so students were assessed on Common Core standards on both the ask and HESPA. That again will happen this year in part. The change this year, of course, one, the most obvious change is that the tests will now be administered online on the computer, and two, that we're adding testing grades 9 and 10. Previously, 11th grade was the only high school grade that was tested.
So 2014 then reflected Common Core standards from a
2014 is what the state called transitional assessments. So although not completely aligned with Common Core concepts were assessed on both the NJASC and HESPA.
So the performance data that we saw in some of the other testing presentations was based on that back in October, is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Here you see unit times. What we have here is just a comparison of NJASC and HESPA in terms of total number of minutes for each unit. PARC, of course, is broken up into two sections. So we have the performance-based assessment and end-of-year assessment. So you have two assessments there. You can see that there is a longer amount of time that students will be given to take the PARC assessment. I'll tell you some numbers, I guess factors that go into that number. One is that the unit times, and when we say unit, that's the individual test section, are a bit longer for PARC to accommodate for differences I think that students have in terms of technology and the capability to use technology. So when these numbers and these test times were developed, I think that a lot of consideration was given to make sure that each student has ample time to finish the section. And the other factor is that PARC has published some what they call time on task estimates. That was based off field test data. The time on task estimates will tell you are probably about 200 minutes less than the times that are listed on this chart. So this is the maximum amount of time that all students are afforded. The difference that in PARC administration and NJASC administration is that for NJASC, every student was required to take the full amount of testing time for that section. PARC allows us some flexibility where if all of the students in the room finish a 75-minute session in 40 minutes, that room can move on to the next session of the test.
So sorry, I didn't realize that. So the number of minutes that are projected for PARC test taking reflect an accommodation for a change from pencil and paper to technology?
Yes, and the way it was termed in the field test, and now that universal times have been established, where it was almost like it's extended time for everyone, as opposed to NJS or HESPA was extended time for students with only an accommodation that was in an IEP.
Okay.
So there's a large amount of time for every student to finish each section of the test.
The time on task measure
Time on task
is the more comparative measure in terms of test to test?
It's the best comparative measure that we
Okay.
have based on the information that PARC supplied from the field test.
Okay. Thank you.
Each unit, in terms of individual unit times, ranges from 60 to 90 minutes.
And this is total time for both end of year
PARC is
and-
total, yep, total time, PBA, and end of year.
So this is
Including
split.
English language arts and math.
And
Okay.
obviously, we hope that anytime we give an assessment, we're using obviously valuable time to give that. These happen to be two assessments that we're obligated to give by the state and mandated to give, but it's important to note that whether it was the ASK or the PARC, students spend less than 1% of their time in school taking these assessments.
Thank you.
Embedded in PARC and the TestNav platform which students will take the test on are some accessibility features. These are some of the tools that our students will have when they're taking the test. The ability to highlight tests. They can flag items for review, so when they come to the end of the section, if they've skipped an item, they can go back to that item. They will have headphones as noise buffers, and also for some parts of the assessment that are video-based, there's a line reader tool, magnification, a notepad that students can take notes as they read, and a pop-up glossary for words that may be bolded in text.
So here you'll see a breakdown of what the performance-based assessment will look like in the coming weeks. Here you'll see with mathematics, there are 2 units. So we have 2 testing sessions. We have the English Language Arts Literacy session, as well as the mathematics session. With the mathematics session, students will be taking 2 units, 2 separate units. And they will be applying skills related to the Common Core state standards. The English Language Arts piece, we have 3 units. The students will be taking the first unit, which is literary analysis, where students grades 3 through 11 will be working with one passage, answering multiple choice questions, a second passage, working with another series of questions, and then they will be given a writing task where students will complete a compare and contrast. So the reading that they do is intrinsically linked to the writing that they will complete. The Unit 2 for research simulation, in grades 3 through 5, students will be given 2 passages where again they will read or view and answer a series of questions, and then they will complete a writing task. In grades 6 through 11, students will be given 3 passages, 2 view or 2 read. Unit 3, narrative, in grades 3 through 11, students will be given 1 passage, and then they will answer a series of questions, and then complete a writing task that's linked to that reading.
Sorry, Dennis, quick
Sure.
question. So those skills that were on the previous slide,
Yes,
the literary analysis, research simulation, and the narrative writing,
yes,
those are things which over the past few years, since CCS came
Yes.
into being, that we've been implementing across our curriculum.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
we've been updating curriculum since 2010, and I know that when I started as supervisor in 2011, I know in working with Chris and working with the other content area supervisors, and looking at the curriculum, we've been working on this for the past few years, yes.
And if I could just interject, it's not just in language arts class, that's something in
Mhm.
social studies class, in
Right.
science class, in phys
Right.
ed class, music class, where appropriate, you know, to be able to use these skills, because it's critical thinking, critical reading, and critical writing.
And that's a precursor to the assumption that Park, at some point, assuming its relative success, as the case may be, is extended into other coursework, right, other
That's right.
curriculum, besides just math and
Correct.
English literature.
The park has been, they've articulated that the reading passages and/or the multimedia that they will view or listen to will be not only related to English, but they'll be related to science and social studies as well.
Okay, okay, thank you.
No problem. The end of year assessment, the students will be taking 2 units in mathematics in grades 3 through 11. We just want to make note that in grades 3 through 5, students will only be taking 1 unit for English Language Arts Literacy. In grades 6 through 11, students will be taking 2 units. And again, students will be working with similar skills. The difference between the EOY and the PBA is that students will only be working with reading skills, and they won't be completing any writing tasks.
Obviously, in terms of data, one of our goals is that for an assessment that we give data that provides us an opportunity to look at student growth, pinpoint strengths and weaknesses, and also look at our programs and refine instruction. And when we talk about the latest information, this is the latest draft that was provided to us in terms of what a Park student report may look like. So you can see this specific report was for math. One difference from the reporting from Park as opposed to NJASC was that NJASC we had 3 levels of proficiency: partial proficient, proficient, and advanced proficient. Park is moving to 5 levels of student performance. Those terms that are under the levels are still in draft phase. They have not been finalized yet. Students will also receive a score, obviously a number score on the assessment. One nice thing about the reports that we're going to receive and that parents, we're anticipating the parents receive, is that there will now be some comparisons that parents get right away in terms of comparing their students' performance to the average in the district, the average in the school, the average in the state, and the average for all of the students that have taken the Park exam. There will still be sub-score information, which really parallels cluster score information that we receive in NJASC, and Park is using a growth model, so we're not sure what that will quite look like yet for this year's report. But in future years, the hope is that we'll have growth comparisons year over year to see how our students have grown.
And just as we've done with the NJASC, we would look at these scores, look at these subsets and clusters, and target instruction accordingly.
Can I
Sure.
just jump in? Mr. Ulmer had said that things are changing, and they are on a daily basis. I went to a symposium, for lack of a better term, today at the Passaic County Schools with the Commissioner of Education, and one of the things, of course, they were talking about was PARC. And they talked about these score reports, and we're used to the partially and advanced proficient and proficient, and they're going to be setting it up. Actually, the new report that they're talking about, Kevin, looks even different than this, a little bit more colorful. But it is going to be divided, it would seem as of today, into 4 different areas. So instead of using those proficient categories, it's going to be partial, moderate, strong, or distinguished. And that's based on the standards within each of the content areas. And one of the things that they talked about, which people seem to really appreciate, is being able to use the data not only individually, but within a class, within a school, within a district, compared to DFGs or those districts that are similar to ours. You know, we got these new reports, and they're saying that districts down south that we're not familiar with are in almost our same DFG, and it's difficult for us to understand that because we look at districts that are surrounding us that are similar to us. We know that better. These reports will allow us to take a look at that, as well as compare them on a national level to those that are doing, those states that are doing the same thing. So I wanted to just say that it's continually changing.
So just a follow-up on that. So there's been a lot of, I guess, discussion about what's happening to the data on the individual students with respect to PARC versus, I guess, NJ, ASC, or HESPA. What is what is NJ DOE actually saying that
They're
they can
saying
or will
that-
do with this data?
That's a great question. They're saying that the data now is going to be far more meaningful than it has in the past. And although we received reports from New Jersey Ask, and Kevin presents them along with Dominic, what they're saying now is it will now be so specific, this data, that we'll be able to determine what standard specifically a student is not doing well in. That's how, in the doctoral program they call it funneling, that's how funneled this data is going to be. And that's one of the reasons that they're saying, let's see how this rolls out and what we're going to do with that data far differently than we have in the past, because it will all be online and we will have the ability to manipulate it internally to say, okay, I want to compare this second grade to that second grade, let's say. We can do that now, so a lot different. Jeff?
Is it, so the individual name of the student obviously is being attached to the test, right?
The individual name, right, so what Kevin said, this being a student report, that's what a parent
Okay.
will
That's what
be
a
able,
parent would say.
a parent would be able to
Okay.
receive, where what parents have received in the past, often needing the guidance of teachers to be able to kind of determine what that meant. 13 out of 15 means what? Well, this will specifically be able to tell parents in what standards.
So the state had access to individual student name and identification information in the previous testing incarnation.
Certainly, because
you were getting your home-based report, right?
Right, it went through a company called Measurements Incorporated, and yes, they did, but the purpose for just having that information is to be able to turn that data back to us in the reports that they have.
So there's nothing new about the possession of student identification data post-PARC than there was previously under NJS.
That's correct, except for the ability to compare what our students did on a district basis to what other, let's say, second graders are doing in another PARC-aligned state. I don't believe, unless I'm wrong, Dennis, that we have the ability to do that. We wouldn't with the New Jersey Ask scenario because we were just doing that test. So that's the only difference, but that doesn't mean that Hannah
Doesn't, right?
is, her information specifically is going to go to another state.
Okay,
It's
great.
the overall data.
Thank you.
Sorry to jump in, just wanted to change.
And these results will be delivered to the parents by mail, the same way that the ASK results were.
Well, we're still, the NJDOE has indicated that we're not going to receive the scores until October or November of this year. And also, you know, Mr. Omar used the word may when we talked about cutoff scores. We don't even know what the cutoff scores are at this point. So they're going to be determining that over the summer as well. So we're not sure what this is going to look logistically afterwards until we've completed the administration of the
I know,
test.
but I mean, now the scores are mailed, they're not given out in the school. They're just gonna be mailed the way they were, so the parent gets the score.
Yeah, I would anticipate it'd be a similar procedure.
We don't know that exactly, Suzanne, so the ambiguity is only because we don't know. I would assume that we're not necessarily going to upload that to our parent portals, and I think that's the only reason that you're vacillating, because we don't quite know. I don't know.
Just a question with the scores. How's keyboarding issues going to be factored into the scores? because this is totally new for children, especially younger children. I mean, and older children who use phones, they don't really know how to keyboard. Do you know how the state is gonna factor that into the scores? Or
Not sure.
we don't know,
Nope,
right?
don't
I
know.
don't know how it can be factored in, it's the first test
Right.
administration.
Okay.
But just as a follow-up, when you were explaining how much more time has been added to this test in comparison to previous tests, it sounds like at least they've attempted to leave more time. That doesn't change the
Yeah, I
fact that the
think
skill
that's-
level on keyboarding may not be very good.
I think the
Right.
larger amount of time, certainly, we're giving to afford students that may not have as good keyboarding skills as another student,
Right.
an opportunity to provide an answer that sufficiently shows the information. to them.
I can spell, but I can't type, right? So, okay.
Yeah, so if you're
And
pecking,
Dennis?
you still should
Oh,
have enough,
more.
you should have enough time to still get through the test.
Yeah, it would be that bad, very bad.
Yes, just for clarification, you mentioned something about when you get the score results, that you can make adjustments to, were you referencing classroom, meaning that you adjust the whole class based on the score results, or is it the individual, and you take the individual and adjust the curriculum to fit what the result
We'll
was?
be able to look at the cluster scores per student. We could look at the cluster scores according to class. We could look at the whole grade level. That's the beauty of this data because it's going to be digital. So we'll be able to look at, in terms of manipulating, we'll be able to look at skills that way. And is there a particular standard that we just didn't hit or we were weak in? We can then cater instruction that way.
And if I could, that's something that our principals and teachers have been doing to date with
Yes.
the NJ Ask data. They took a look at it and looked at areas of strength and weakness on an individual basis or classroom basis, grade level basis, school basis.
And the tools that you referenced, that are accessed by clicking on an icon?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
There's almost like a toolbar that you would see in a program, and you have access to all those tools.
And with regards to scoring, each student in grades 3 through 11, they will earn what's referred to as a PLD, or a performance level descriptor. That's just a fancy phrase for what their score will be. They will earn a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 in English language arts and math. And they will earn a PLD in every single grade level.
So this year, the scores won't really be able to be used for anything, because you're not gonna get them back in time.
We're not going to be using them for placement purposes. No.
It's the same as NJS, we got cluster scores back in the fall of the following year.
Mhm.
It's important, we're not going to make any decisions instructionally, whether it's for a student or a program, based on one assessment.
Mhm.
It gives us one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
So certainly, we hope it's a valuable piece. We don't know yet, it's the first year of the assessment, we don't know what type of data it
And the
will
state's
produce.
basically saying 3 years. It'll take 3 years to decide.
But it's, regardless if it's 1 year, 3 year, it's gonna be one piece of the puzzle when we're looking at the programs that we have. in place.
As always, we always look at multiple measures. So whether it's the NGS, the park, or some other assessment, we look at multiple measures. Okay, so we're going to ask Christine Zimmerman, our Director of Curriculum, just to add what we've been looking at in terms of programs and preparing our students as well as our teachers.
Okay, so Dennis referenced the fact that I've been here in front of the board 3 different times talking about the Park and Common Core, as well as visiting HSOs in most of the schools except for the high school that did that on their own. And what I've talked about at each of those times is that we've updated our curriculum in all content areas. The New Jersey Department of Ed asks that we do that periodically in all subject areas, and Common Core, Common Core, Math and Language Arts required that we do that as well. We've made sure that students are using technology. We instituted keyboarding lessons in our elementary schools last year, continued this year, and plan on continuing into the future. But it's interesting, as children learn more, we have to adjust what's expected at each grade level, and that's something that we're grappling with actually currently. Like, what's that going to look like, expectations, in terms of keyboarding facility. As well as looking for opportunities to have students work digitally across the curriculum. And teachers are looking for that. It's put into curriculum, and teachers are also finding resources. And then specifically with regard to the test itself, you never want to have children sit down cold for a test, right? When you took the SATs or anything like that, if you've done that in your own life, you read through the book first, you get a sense of what that's about. So we want to make sure that the students are exposed to the Park Test Nav platform prior to testing so that they're comfortable with it. And then steps to prepare teachers, starting with the 2010-2011 school year, back when most of the public had never heard of the Common Core. Mahwah teachers started to look at it. We did that in professional development sessions and in large groups, small groups. What is the Common Core in language arts and in math? What does that look like side by side with the old standards? And we had teachers explore that. That in the educational jargon is called unpacking. We gave them professional development in ensuing years, deep and ongoing professional development in district, and we sent folks out. We had staff developers coming in, teachers in language arts, staff development, ongoing for many years. Now we're in our third year, K-5 staff developers. We've sent people to Teachers College Columbia workshops, the Paramus week-long institutes in literacy. Secondary have also had their ongoing staff development, and in math the same thing. We've sent folks out to Conquer Math workshops, brought standard solutions workshops in. Teachers look at the standards and how it impacts their curriculum in their PLC, their professional learning communities as well. And the teachers took the PARCC practice tests. That's something we required every teacher to do at the beginning of the school year, so they understood what their students would experience. You don't really know what that is until you've done it yourself. So that was an eye-opener. For our staff, you could read the standard, you could read about the PARCC, but until you've taken it yourself, you don't really know what that means. So they kept that in the back of their mind as they moved forward as well.
Do you think we could have a Take the PARCC for the board members and for anyone else who's interested?
Actually, that's on the Curriculum and Instruction website. The link's been there since the fall.
Okay.
It's open. PARCC puts that out there. They want people to try it. So you can try the test nav, you can try the PARCC, any grade level, any test.
Okay, thank you. You're welcome.
Sorry, Chris, just a.
Sure.
Can you, I mean, one of the things that I've read or heard as a criticism of the PARCC is that, you know, there'll be some major shift of instructional resources to quote-unquote teaching to the test. So I guess, can you comment on that from the perspective of somebody who delivers curriculum every day? I mean, I have my own opinion, but I'm probably not exactly what I would want to say. Sorry.
So when we started talking about this, you may remember the first presentation that I did, and actually it wasn't my idea, I heard it from somebody else. We talked about the standards being the core of an apple, and I had the picture of a core of an apple up there. Even in news reports, lots of reporters are saying the Common Core curriculum. Common Core is not curriculum. Common Core is standards of what our students need to learn. And our teachers here in Mahwah build the curriculum. Sometimes with teachers in other districts, like our everyday math curriculum is a multi-district collaborative effort. But we build our curriculum according to our values, but with the standards at the heart of it. So we're teaching to the standards.
Okay.
We're not teaching to the test.
Thank you. I wouldn't have said that.
So that's what we've been doing curricularly, and we also wanted to share with you what we've been doing logistically in terms of preparing for the administration of the test.
With the first administration of PARCC, I think the district took the same approach that we take with any challenge we're faced with, and that's one, to accept the challenge, and then two, do our absolute best to make sure that our students and staff are successful. This really started last year with our participation in the field test, which gave us a lot of valuable information in terms of setting up testing environments properly for students, making sure that we have the most comfortable testing environments that we can provide for our students, testing our infrastructure to make sure that we have the proper bandwidth to administer the test. Been working closely with Carlos Rosa, our technology director, to make sure that all of the hardware is up to date with the requirements that we need to administer the assessment. And with information always changing, we've really been making effort as a team, whether it's a team of administrators or a team of teachers, to make sure that we're sharing information. As that information comes out, make sure that everyone's kind of abreast of the information and up to date with expectations and any changes that have been made. I'm very confident in terms of facilities and resources that we're set to be very successful in 2 weeks as we have launched our first attempt with PARCC. And I'm even more confident that if there are bumps along the road, that we have some systems in place to make sure that we can troubleshoot and minimize any disruption to students.
If I can just add, worthy of note, our district preparation for this was shared with all Bergen County districts as a result of our executive planning superintendent reaching out to me. Because there are, districts who weren't doing as much as we did, and she asked for our list and what it is that we've done, because I have been talking about it so much for so long. So with that said, it's nice to know that it was a procedure that was hopefully followed by other districts as well.
And I really want to highlight our administrators who are in the audience, Dr. DeToro, Mrs. Chrisomalis, Mrs. Rizzo, as well as Connie Lee for helping us throughout the school year. This isn't something that we've been doing last minute. We've been preparing and meeting regularly to make sure that this is something that's administered in a seamless as possible. And as Christine Zimmerman has already mentioned, this is how you can access any of our Common Core or park resources through our district webpage.
So at this point, we'd like to, if we could, Chris, if that's okay with you, is open it up for any questions that we may have. Do you guys want to sit down? Kevin, do you want to sit up here so that I can see if that'll be easier? Can we also have the light so it's got a little light on this?
Sure.
Thank you. Chris, it's up to you. Sure. Could you just state your name or?
Christine Moretti for Ivy Lane, and just so you know, I'm also the president of Betsy Ross HSO, but I don't speak for the HSO, I'm just speaking personally. And you hear me say that every single time. How can the park, and we've made a lot of accommodations for technology, I think Mahwah's doing a good job of getting the students to learn, but there are some kids who are not, or just not going to be able to get there with the technology. How can you spot those students? How does the test, how do you know this kid had a technology problem versus a content problem? I know it's only one piece of the puzzle, but how are we going to spot that? And then, what can we do about that afterwards?
That's a great question, and I think we probably, of course, will run across how many students are testing in the district. I know I'm putting you on the spot. 18, a little under what?
3 and 11.
A little under 25? I mean, there's undoubtedly, we're going to have kids, and Mrs. Barron said it well, kids have their cell phones, but that's totally different than the whole keyboard piece. You can do as much as you can to prepare the kids as much as you can, and I think your question was, well, how will they know whether or not it was a technology issue, or was it a content-related issue, and a student really did know? And I don't know the answer to that, Chris, I really don't. Right. I don't know how, in looking at the results, will they know that Sam had an issue with this, but Sally had an issue with something else.
But the park, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
The park has released a series of error codes in terms of if there are any technology glitches, that those are recorded under the student's account, which error codes are met, or what type of technological issues are met by the student, according to the Test Now platform or the computer that they're on.
And that's something that the test administrator would put in?
Yes. So the test administrator in that computer lab or classroom who's proctoring will be noting those error codes as well.
I think you may have been referring to manipulating different items on the test and those types of tests that students are required to do. I will tell you from our field test experience, students were very successful with the technology that was required on the exam. They tend to surprise us sometimes,
Well,
especially.
they teach us so much, right?
Yeah,
Right.
they do.
Tend to surprise you and have a lot of great skills.
Hi, Vicky
Yes.
Gower, 68 Armor Road. Mrs. Zimmerman, I was just curious about when you unpacked the core curriculum and you did do that, extensive comparison. What were your findings? What did you find? Did you find, I'm curious, did you find that our standards prior to core, matched? Did you find you had a lot of backfill? I'm just curious what you found.
The Common Core standards as compared to the New Jersey state standards previous.
Yes.
They were more specific. I gave an example in my HSO presentation about the Pythagorean theorem, and I forget exactly what the standard was, but it was very general. And the Common Core standard is very specific with regard to the expectations at that grade level for that standard. And that's what the teachers noticed in terms of specificity. They really understood exactly what was expected of the student, what the outcome should be, as opposed to the old standards, which were broader.
So did you find that the teachers have a lot of work to do to, you know, to really build up that, now the core standards? I mean, I'm just curious, how much work is it, or I don't know if the right way to put it.
Work's the right
In
way.
ter-
Way to put it, but.
Yeah, it was work.
It's work.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it was work, but I think it was work that teachers kind of rolled up their sleeves with their principals. Supervisors worked, you know, elbow to elbow, and really waded in and tried to figure out what this meant for their teaching. You know, sometimes people think you can just put the old standards on top of, the new standards on top of old curriculum and make it fit. And this was really kind of a revolutionary way of looking at things. So there was a lot of discussion since 2010, 2011 school year about what that meant for teaching and learning. So I think our teachers did a wonderful job, guided by their administrators and supervisors. That's ongoing. It's not done yet.
Right. Because there's a lot of talk and criticism, you know, in my circles about what it really means, and is it really, you know, how it's going to benefit, is it going to be detrimental? Are teachers losing their ability to be free to teach in their own, you know, style, you know, things like that, because it's becoming more restrictive? So I was just curious.
I think our teachers have been energized by the conversation. Certainly it's a challenge, it's something new, but they see what the expectations are and what changes that would bring to their teaching and their classrooms for the good, to elevate what children can do.
And good teaching is good teaching, and we have great teachers. So from a language arts background, I know that teaching a core novel, just the core novel, is not necessarily relevant or fun teaching. And the Common Core encourages other texts, including a video clip or an audio clip, and having the students make those connections. That's great teaching, and having the students do that independently. And that's what the Common Core does, and the part just happens to be aligned to those standards. But I think in terms of style, we have the standards, and the teachers can deliver those standards any way they see fit.
Which is a very interesting thing to say, because I don't think that's understood.
I agree.
Which is why I talked about the misnomer about the Common Core curriculum. And I've seen it in newspapers, and very, you know, well-respected newspapers, and it's not, there's no curriculum attached to the Common Core. There's standards that districts can interpret and in terms of how they play out. Not in terms of outcomes and expectations. Those are the standards. But in terms of how we get our kids there, that's the art.
I have a question regarding that, because I know the Common Core state standards are copyrighted. So how much leeway do you have to write a curriculum around something that is copyrighted that cannot be changed?
The standards are copyrighted,
Yes.
but the curriculum is not the Common Core. The curriculum is ours.
Right, but you have to follow the Common Core state standards, which are copyrighted. So it's my understanding that you can only change about 15% of it.
We're not changing the standards, the expectation of the standards.
But you can only add 15%. Sorry, wrong choice of words.
We haven't added any, we're not adding to the Common Core.
Okay.
We're not changing the Common Core standards. We use the Common Core standards, but we develop our curriculum from the Common Core standards.
So for instance, the new language, let's say language strand, that's a new strand for the Common Core. Although that's a requirement, the teacher is able to really show that standard or have the students achieve that standard any way they see fit. So for instance, the students need to learn metaphor. I may do that in a totally different way than another English teacher. So while it's a roadmap, there are a variety of different roads that you can take in order to get to that end point. So as Ms. Zimmerman was saying, you know, it's not a Common Core curriculum. It's our curriculum that we built here at home, the way that we see fit that's best for our students.
Now, there's been a quote floating around there from Mr. Gates, that once the tests and standards are aligned, that the curriculum will follow, that it has to follow. So that's where my concern is, then you're gonna lose control, the local control, to be able to write your own curriculum. And that's a concern that I have regarding this, and I know it's a concern that a lot of people have. So, I know it's something that you probably can't answer that question, it's more of a state needs to answer that question.
I think, if I may, I think the state does, but I think what we're forgetting is that we've had standards and we've had tests. And we've had them for some time, and for those of us who, remember the New Jersey Ask, and before that it was the California Achievement Test, and there are probably a whole bunch of, and the HESPA and the GEPA, and those tests have always been aligned to the standards in place at the time. And I know that Mrs. Saldrini brought up a little while ago as far as, teaching to the test is concerned. If you teach the standards, whether they're the Common Core or whether they're the New Jersey Core Content Curriculum Standards, you're going to also bring in pieces of the test because you don't want kids to look at the test and not understand the format. I use spelling as an example. When I went to school and learned spelling, I learned how to spell the word cat, C-A-T. Then as I moved up the grade levels, I learned not only how to spell the word, but I needed to understand it in context. So my teacher used to use that blank space, and I had to make sure I chose the right word for that. That's the way I was tested on the SATs at the time. So I think your question is a good one. I think it's more for the state on the level that you're talking about when you refer to the Mr. Gates piece. But I don't want us to forget that although the standards are a change, and no one really likes change, and although this test is a change, and no one really likes that either, we're far more familiar with the standards we need to teach the Common Core than we are with the PARC. And as we answer, I want to give you definitive things, we all do, but it keeps on changing. And I think one of the things we need to understand is, yeah, change brings that about, but at the end of the day, we're not truly going to understand it until we see what the end result is. And that ambiguity, I think, causes more concern, and it does for parents, and we know it. It does for students and our own children who may be taking it and hear teachers talk about it. And to be quite honest with you, it does for all of us.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Because our job is to say we can do this and it's going to be great, and we're asking, what are we doing? And then they change the rules along the way, not they meaning us, but we have to turn around and say to our administrators here, remember what you were going to do with that? It's no longer 50, it's now 80 minutes. And you can only have 20 in the room, and you can't put that test coordinator in. There are all these rules that are, believe it or not, I'm sure, raising the anxiety of our administrators as well, but it's a brand new process. And so although I'm not defending what I don't completely understand yet and don't in mind admitting it, I do think we need to allow the process to roll out and then form our opinions on that. Right now, we're just doing what we're told because we kind of have to do what it is we're told as far as the mandated piece is
I know,
concerned.
when I was down in Trenton
So it's
recently in
tough.
the Education Assembly, Chairwoman said that she understands there's a disconnect between them, Trenton, and parents. And it's something that they need to work on to even gain trust back, because there's been a lot of misinformation and people are confused, very confused.
And what
and
happens is,
frustrated.
and when you don't have that disparity, what happens is, is people, they try to figure it out. And they'll come up with what they think is the very best answer based on their district, and then the state will come out with something else, and then people think the administrators don't know what's going on, and then they say the State Department doesn't know what's going on. I think that there's so many changes happening so quickly, and although we knew this was going to roll out, all of a sudden, here it is. So it could be, be careful what you wish for. And here it is. And now what are we going to do with it? So when we say we believe we're as prepared as we can possibly be, and I'm not at all saying that the New Jersey Department of Ed isn't fielding many questions and doing the very best that they can, but it does, there are a lot of changes, and it's
frustrating, it's strange, yeah.
Well, it is, and I think that it's important publicly to say to everyone, yeah, we're telling you that we're as prepared as we possibly can be. But we don't know how this is all going to look when it rolls out. We don't know when we test our 2,500 students that there won't be glitches. Part of me thinks, yeah, there are probably going to be some along the way. We'll make sure there's a tech person there. We'll do the very best we can. And we'll do the very best we can with that communication. But at the end of the day, it won't be a perfect rollout. But I can venture to say that when New Jersey Asked and the others rolled out, they probably weren't perfect either. And there was that anxiety in the letters that went out to parents, and eat a good breakfast, and you're still going to get that, and make sure your kids get a good night's sleep. It's a different ballgame. I do think, like the video recorder at home in the VCR, that kids will kind of figure it out a little bit easier than we will,
Yeah.
but it is a change. I'm gonna let her take her turn first, then I'll come back to you.
Leslie Krasinski, 14 Wanamaker Avenue. In terms of procedures, I'm on the fence about refusing the test. What are the procedures set up by the district for the students who are, whose parents have refused the test?
And you used a great word, and I'm real happy that you did, because opt-out has been used a lot, and there is no opt-out.
Right.
We're not allowed to opt out. The Board of Education is not allowed to say that a student can opt out because it's a mandated test. However, there is the ability for test refusal, and we have asked our principals to field that with any questions that they may have. If a child chooses to refuse, or a parent rather chooses to refuse to have their child take the test, we ask that there's a written letter that goes to the principal. I like being CC just so that I'm aware of what's going on in the district, but the administrators are great and they share that with me. At that point, the principals will reach out to the parent and they're going to talk about what they do know. And that's going to be the merit of the standards and the fact that this test this assessment is out there to kind of gauge what they are for two reasons. One, because we want to make sure that your kids are learning the right thing, and secondly, that we're doing the right thing on our part, so it's a big instructional component. If after that conversation, a parent still wants to refuse to have their child take the test, then on the day of the test there'll be an alternate setting, another place that a child will go with a proctor, with someone with a child, and or a student, and they'll be able to read a book or work on an assignment. What we're not going to do, and we have come to a collective decision with that, is we're not going to provide another educational activity because the State Department has told us that the educational activity for the day is testing. So what we don't want to do is have our teachers prepare something else for what could be students over a variety of different grade levels. It would really be an impossible task and just wouldn't be the right thing to do. So in answer to your question, if there is a test refusal, that is the procedure. Not policy, but the procedure that our district has in place.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, okay, Evelyn Slackbow. No, go ahead.
Did you want to go in?
Mine was a follow-up,
Wait,
it
what's
was
your
very
name?
similar to what
Christine Moran.
Are you speaking as an HSO president or?
Do you still live
Sign
at
up.
the previous address that you indicated?
I have moved in the last few minutes. My question was similar to Leslie's, and there's a lot of chatter going on in the district, and a lot of parents do come to me, you know, just asking, but what are the, I guess the other component of that, of Leslie's question is, what are the, vocabulary, what is the impact on the student for not taking the test? I know in the following year, there's the opportunity to have some adjustments made if there's core groups and subgroups of the content that they need additional instruction on if they're weak or whatever, but you know, that's a long time off, but
The
in the
first
great
year out
scheme
though,
of
Chris, there
things,
isn't any the first year out. I mean, it's not going to be used, you know, it is one measurement, but it's not going to be used for placement purposes. You know, I guess the impact of the student is going to be what are the other students going to say when that student isn't sitting in the
Right.
classroom, and how are they going to address that, and that's something the parents can personally, you know, address with their own child for. But as far as there being any disciplinary component to it, no. No, not at all. We do feel it's important to remove the child to an alternate setting for two reasons. I think it'd be truly impossible for an 8-year-old to sit tight for an 80-minute test in front of a computer screen, number one. Number two, we do need that computer for other students. And number three, I do think the time would be best served if they can either read a book or bring a long-term project or something else that they're working on for that period of time. I'm not going to suggest that when they finish it, it isn't going to be a boring period of time for them, but it is a decision I'm sure that parents reach together with their child, and they understand it, and that's the way that'll roll out.
I want to take this opportunity to thank Mahwah for having that procedure in place, because there are some districts that are forcing children to sit and stare, which we're hoping Commissioner Hespy sends a memo out saying that's pretty inhumane. No, but I want to thank you for taking a stand and doing that.
That was very much, Ms. Barron, thank you for saying that. That was very much a collective decision with our principals, and talking about what we feel would be best for their student population, because nobody knows their population better than they do. So it was a collective decision, and we believe that it is the right one. What we do want at the end of the day, Ms. Barron, and I'd be neglectful if I didn't bring it up, is we want every child to take the test. That is our mandate from the state. We want to know how we're doing, and in order to do that, we want an entire population of students. But we also realize at the end of the day that we cannot force Sally or Johnny to have to take a test. So we understand that. If there are a bunch of misconceptions out there as far as what our procedure is, if you would be kind enough in this public forum to make sure that that's out there. What we aren't doing, another collective decision, is we're not publicizing what it is that we're doing with our procedure. We believe that we have an obligation as a district not to encourage the lack of participation. And what you do when you list that out, and Mrs. Lockberry, you had sent an email requesting that it was included in the letter, and if that's a question that you ask, let me be preemptive and let you know that it will not be included in the letter, because we truly believe our obligation is to have students take the test, and although parents may differ, we need to respond as a whole on the district. So although it may get out there, and that's okay, we're not trying to hide it, we're just not going to publicize it.
Okay. I have 3 logistical questions. Okay, one concern is the headphones. And, you know, of course, we've all been to school and kids with lice and sharing of things and how that's going to be treated.
That's a super great question. Each of them are individually bagged for all of our students with their name on them. They will travel with them and only them throughout the course of their career.
Okay, second question would be, you're giving it in March and then in April. Is that just for this first year? Is that the way it is always going to be?
Again, we don't know the answer to that. There's talk out there that perhaps they will go back to, or they may just have one. And we just don't know, Mrs. Lockbauer. We don't know.
Okay.
We're playing this with the information we have. They're saying twice this year. We'll be prepared to do so. If they go to once that year, we'll communicate that.
Okay, and then Kevin Ulmer said something about, you know, the kids finishing, but if there is one student who is still working on the exam, all of the children have to stay in the exam setting until the final child is completed?
That's going to depend on their testing session, and it's going to be different based on each building and the schedule that they've made. For example, I have 3rd graders testing in my building. If I have 20 of the 25 students that are finished, I can have 2 test administrators there, and the 20 students can go back to their class, and the 5 students can finish testing. Now, that may not happen in every building. It's dependent really upon the schedule that they have and the number of test administrators and teachers they have available at the time. But there is some options and flexibility in terms of releasing students after they finish the test.
Okay, okay. And then my last question would be not to do with logistics, but, oh, sorry.
You already said 3.
Sorry.
I'm just...
As far, okay, well, you've known, I have a daughter who's a senior, and I've been through a lot of this stuff. I've been through the changes with everyday math. I've been through lots of changes. My bottom line would be, I really don't care about the test results. What actually impact it will have on our students and how that will be determined.
What do you mean as far as impact?
If Johnny does bad in comprehension, what is then done as far as helping Johnny with comprehension?
Well, teachers are going to meet. We're going to do a data analysis. Remember, we don't even know how the data is going to be presented, so we would do that on a central office and with our administrative team first. And then, of course, it would be shared with supervisors for the 6-12 level, and they would meet with teachers and determine if there's an overarching theme. You know, sometimes that's the easiest need to address. If you determine that all 3rd graders are having an issue with a certain standard, it means then that there is a piece within our curriculum that is not being met. So that's when Mrs. Zimmerman calls everybody together and says, okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're not formulating the letter D correctly, and that's the reason our kids can't do it. So they go back and figure that out, and what makes it personal along with Ms. Barron is that's when the assessments come in and the practice examples come in. What are we going to do to make sure that our kids can learn this? And that will follow to the next grade level, because the test results will be from the level beforehand. That process is actually the foundation of what Ms. Zimmerman does. She makes sure that the curriculum is aligned to, that our standards are within our curriculum well. How did I do with that? And then the instruction piece of her title is, what do we do as far as that instruction is concerned? So we all are really looking forward to having some meaningful data that we can absolutely say without hesitation that we're not doing this right because we have 90 second graders in district who aren't either. So how do we fix it? And that's where Christine comes in.
Okay, and that would be addressed in each classroom in that particular grade level.
Depending on what
over.
the issue is, Mrs. Slackbear, certainly.
That's
Okay.
something we have been doing.
We're assessing every day.
We're assessing every
Teachers.
day, and the interesting thing about standardized test results is we lay them down alongside our own district assessments. Class teachers look at them, at that information compared to the assessments that they give in class, or benchmark assessments that we give, across a grade level. And that's, somebody said it before, I think Dennis did, the multiple measures piece. Everything is another piece of information, and how does it all fit together? And sometimes you see information that is at odds, and then you look at the totality of everything you have, and say what does it tell us? About the student, about instruction, about program.
So the PARC assessment does not have any direct impact on a child.
Right now, the PARC assessment does not have any direct impact on a child. How that unfolds, for the record, we don't know yet. And it's not that we're hiding anything, it's because that information has not been given to us, and it is out there. Even the Department of Ed will tell you that at this point. And you know something? Even that could change.
Okay.
So right now, we're doing what we're told, and we're preparing as well as we can. And we're going to send out that information. Dennis said that, so I'd like to just, if I could, conclude this by saying that principals will send out information. We're proceeding as we normally do. We're going to send out what we're going to send out to parents, to our full faculty and staff first. The board has a copy of that information already, and then we'll get that out to parents, and that'll happen on Friday, and that's going to be individual in nature because the time periods in the schools are individual in nature, and that makes the most sense.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'm going to conclude this. We've gone way over our 15 minutes, but I think this was a productive conversation, so I think it's time to move on. Finance and facilities? Okay. All right, President's report. Well, I have a few things. I want to commend our students for some great work done. The North Jersey School Music Association Region 1 Chorus. Mahwah was well represented in the chorus. Of the 16 students from Mahwah High School and the Ridge who auditioned, 14 were accepted into either the women's or mixed ensembles. And we're very, very proud of each and every one of them and for their dedication and their hard work. Additionally, Region 1 Junior High School Band, the Rampo Ridge Middle School, has had 4 students accepted into the Region 1 Junior High School Band. These school students displayed exceptional skill and merit at the Weekend Solo Festival and will be representing the Ridge in the 7-8 Junior Ensemble at the upcoming New Jersey NJSMA Junior Regional Band Festival. And I want to congratulate these students for a job well done. So very, very proud, and every really excellent. I'm not done.
Everybody needs to wait.
I also want to congratulate our future problem-solving teams. The Rampo Ridge 6th and 8th grade future problem-solving teams ranked in the top 10 out of 70 teams who participated in the qualifying booklet in New Jersey. The top 6 teams, 3 in the junior division and 3 in the middle division, will move on to participate in the state's online competition to be held on February 27th. Mahwah High School is also well represented, 2 senior division teams and 1 middle division team placed in the top 10 of the state as well. These teams will be participating in the online FPS state competition as well. Congratulations to the Mahwah High School coach, Christine Hardigan. I also want to wish good luck to the 9 teams as they represent our school district in the State Bowl to be held at Keene University on March 14th. For the on-site presentation of action plan competition and award ceremony. So our students are just doing fantastic stuff, and I'm very, very proud of them. And they're your kids, so you should be proud of them as well. So.
Now you're done.
I am done. Thank you. Okay. All right. Board committee reports. John.
The Finance and Facility Committee met this afternoon at 5:30. And Ed handed out to the Finance Committee the budget book that is very preliminary. We still have a lot of work to do on that. On Tuesday, the governor gives his address, and we'll get some state aid money, hopefully a couple days after that, the number that comes in there. And when that comes in, we're going to be meeting March 4th again, and we're going to be moving a little bit fast forward as to getting the rest of this put together. So right now, it's very preliminary, and everybody knows we've got a cap that we're under. The facilities part of it, we've reviewed a lot of what has taken place, and some money that's going to be allocated to different projects. Currently, the boilers in Betsy Ross, George Washington, and Ramapo Ridge have been replaced, and it's probably a good winter to have that accomplished. That, as everybody knows, their furnaces are working overtime right now. The JK Univent replacement is in process, and that's taking place. We have a switchgear which handles a lot of electricity that comes through the high school. That's in motion at this point in time. We're going to be looking at replacing a piece of the JK roof, redoing it because it's over 20 years old, or coming to that point now that it's 20 years old and there's some leaks that need to be addressed. So that'll be taking place. We have a long-range facility plan that we're going to need to start talking about. The state, or we will be talking about. The state has a whole formula and a bunch of paperwork that we need to go through, and that's not going to be ready for another couple of months. So that discussion will be taking place over that period of time as well.
Thank you, John. Any other committee reports? Yes.
Real fast on negotiation, we've got the exchange proposals. First face-to-face is February 25th.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, board member remarks.
On the park assessment, I'm happy to see that, I mean, of course there's going to be anxiety, but I'm happy to see the anxiety is more about this is something new and sort of unknown, and we're going to see how it's going to play out, as opposed to, oh my God, I hope we're prepared and what are we going to do? Because there were a lot of districts that fought this, saying, you know what, they're never actually going to do it, and didn't dig in like we did here. And I'm proud of the work that our teachers and principals, department supervisors have done, because it has been a lot of work. And instead of, you know, sort of trying to dodge the bullet, they jumped in head on and really figure out how to make this thing great for us.
You really did, right?
I'm proud to see it.
Thank you.
I just want to echo that too, because I thought Kevin, and I'm sad that he left because I wanted him to hear this too, and Dennis did a remarkable job presenting this. There were some very good questions by our attendees, our audience tonight. Chris Zimmerman's been, you know, leader of this for several years now, and he's done a remarkable job. So I thought there were some very good questions. I thought there were some very good answers that were given. There's still the unknown, and that's the factor that that we all have to work through. But I'd like to thank the administration for doing such a great job in presenting this and getting through a difficult period of time to get people to understand what it is that we're looking to accomplish. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I was on the curriculum committee when, I think I might have been president of the curriculum committee when this started coming through. And I remember looking at the big fat curriculum and then Chris saying, we have to change all this. And then, you know, we hired the teachers worked overtime, I mean, we paid them, but I know that was a lot more hours than what we paid for them to come up and change and tweak and make the curriculum even more rigor. And that was a lot of work, and we've really been preparing this for a very long time.
Well, I'd like to add also is that I know that I've been on the board for a very long time, and I've been on curriculum committee for a long time, and I know that no matter what comes to Mahwah or to any district, we are always prepared, and we do the best we can, and our curriculum just keeps getting better and better despite what is thrown at us. So I am very confident that our students are going to be in a really good place. And yes, the unknown is scary, but I have the utmost confidence that we are putting our students in the best place possible. So I feel really good about it, and thank you very much, even all you, Christine, and supervisors and principals, everyone. So thank you very much. All right. All set? All right, old business, minutes. Do I have a motion? John? And Kim? All in favor?
Aye.
Do a roll call.
Okay.
Mr. De Silva?
Yes.
Mr. Denise?
Yes.
Mr. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Salverini?
Yes.
Mrs. Barron?
Yes.
Mrs. Curry?
Yes.
Mr. D'Angelo?
Yes.
And Mrs. Davis?
Yes. Okay, new business, A through N, please. Do I have a motion? John Dolan. And second, Chuck Salvini. Discussion? Okay.
15A through N, Mr. De Silva?
Yes.
Mr. Denise?
Yes.
Mr. Dolan?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Salverini? Mrs. Barron?
Yes.
Mrs. Curry?
Yes.
Mr. D'Angelo?
Yes.
And Mrs. Davis?
Yes. Okay, new business, personnel, A through Q. May I have a motion, please? John Dolan, and a second. Rich Silva. Discussion? Yes, sorry.
Sorry to hear that you people leaving.
I know. Anyone else? Okay.
Mr. De Silva?
Yes.
Mr. Denise?
Yes.
Mr. Dolan?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Salverini? Mrs. Barron? Mrs. Curry? Mr. D'Angelo?
Yes.
And Mrs. Davis?
Yes. All right, public questions or comment, this section of public participation will be limited to 15 minutes. Yes.
Christine Moranti. I want to give some great news, just to add. Betsy Ross completed our annual readathon this year, and I'm sorry to bring you samples, but I was going to speak the next meeting, but I can't, so I have to do a little early. The children read for 4 weeks, as we usually do over the past few years. Our theme this year, we're so excited, and I think the kids really loved it. Our theme was Mahwah BoE, so it had complete with the logo on the top. We developed a Mahwah BoE board. We featured properties and venues from all around town. We had all the parks, all the water bodies, all the schools, the CFA, Veterans Park. It was not commercial. There was no marketing. There were no stores. As much as we wanted to put Lagonda and Moe's on there, we were the library, the post office, the Mahwah Museum had a place. Every week there was a different fact. There was a Mahwah fact of the week, so where you normally would have like a chance or those like treasure chest cards on the Monopoly board, there was a Mahwah fact of the week, and it highlighted Les Paul. Joyce Kilmer had a spot, Les Paul had a spot, and we highlighted different facts every week. We challenged the kids to read at different levels as a whole school, which is only the second year in a row, third year in a row that we've done that, trying to unify the school and make it a little less of a competition, but more of reading for joy as opposed to reading for a prize. And this year, our kids with a slightly smaller school, we blew away. Last year, they read 190,000 minutes, 240 students. This year, 240 students approximately read 226,000 minutes in 4 weeks.
That's awesome.
We had about 85% participation rate. One of the things I'm most proud of is that we were able to reach kids, like as chairperson of this program for the past 3 years, I can see on the rosters that there are some kids who just, they don't participate, or they are and their logs don't come in, and that's a parental responsibility at K-3. And we were just delighted that this year we were able to have some reading done by the paras at indoor recess, because there was so much of it. And those kids, we gave them credit for those minutes, so they were able to get something for participating. And then we had some logs come in from home from kids that have never turned in a log before, and that was just really great. Another highlight of the program was that we incorporated our Friday games, a couple of Friday games, into reading. We had a long strip of Monopoly, the side of the board, And kids would roll a couple of dice and they'd mark the spots, and we had an activity. Do a sword fight like Peter Pan, all classic literary characters with some physical activity that they would do in one of their stories. You know, draw in the sky with a purple crayon like Harold did. Pretend you're squished in a car like Alexander on his bad day, all different things like that. That was a big hit with the kids. And the last piece that I was really excited about is we really tried to move away from food. I've done a lot of work into looking at non-food and non-material prizes for the kids. So all of our team prizes, our class participation prizes, and our whole school prizes were not food and they were not items. So individual students got items. So the prizes we gave away for teams, classes for participation were lunch in the nature center, or our beautiful underutilized nature center. So when the weather gets better, they can go outside and have lunch with Para in the nature center, one class at a time. Those were 2 classes. Then 4 classes on the dog team. 1 for the team with the most minutes, and that's still a secret. It's being announced on Friday. To the kids, they are winning 10 extra minutes of recess, and that we coordinated that with Mrs. Talkert. So when the weather gets better, they'll have that. The other prizes were, you know, the ever-popular pajama day and the ever popular one night no homework pass, which is tomorrow night. They'll be enjoying that. The grand prize, Mrs. Taukert, so fabulously volunteered to color her hair blue. If the children reached their goal of 188,000 minutes, which, you know, we're 44 something minutes over, and so she will be wearing blue hair to school Friday morning.
I'll be
so.
sure to,
That's awesome. Morning meeting. So,
Mahwah blue, right?
It's Mahwah blue, Argentina blue, Carolina blue. And our next program is Math Mania, and it's even more exciting than that, and I really can't wait to tell you about that, or have the committee tell you about that in March. But once again, our readathon was a big success.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Yes.
Shauna Brown on 50 Divine Drive. I noticed in the agenda, talk about the school year program and the summer enrichment program and the music program, the summer school program. What I am missing is what was cut last year, our summer enrichment program that was open to all children. Is there any talk about coming back? I mean, last year we were given a reason with all the school facility issues that had to be taken care of during the summer.
There were, and we have more this year. Actually, we had a meeting to determine where we were going to do some placements. I don't know whether or not it's going to be resurrected for this year. There was discussion last year, and you are correct about talking about it this year. We have not done that to date, although there are still facility situations that are going on, and we're going to have to move kids. It hasn't been a discussion that we've had to date.
Is it a defunct program, you think, or is it just...
I don't know. I don't know. One of the reasons that we chose to eliminate it or let it go last year, which I had said was the lack of participation, which it kept going down over a 5-year period. That became difficult. So I don't know whether or not we can get back that participation by perhaps changing some of the offerings, because maybe those offerings were getting outdated, and that's the reason there was a lack of participation. I can't tell you that it's off the table, but I can't tell you that it's on the table to move forward until this summer.
So it's not going to happen this year?
I don't believe so.
Is there someone else? Yes.
Yes.
Hi, so my name is Kate Nunez. I live at 14 Long Avenue. It's in West Mahwah. So I'm here actually to ask you, and I know I definitely sent a letter to Dr. Schoen. I've been doing some work on my own and a group of concerned parents like myself in regards to the safety in transporting our kids to school, and those unfortunately who are within the 2-mile to 2.5-mile radius within Mahwah who are then not given busing transportation. Now, I happen to live on the corner of Long and Meadow, and at that point, my 2 children, when they hit middle school, were 1.9 miles away from the school. And even though middle school bus passes through my neighborhood with empty seats, my children were not given rides to school. Now, especially during this time of year, you look at where my children would have to walk in order to get to school. And the infrastructure within Mahwah is unfortunately not kept up to date in regards to the amount of traffic. I've lived in this town for 17 years. 12 of them have been spent in West Mahwah. I've actually had other issues with Mahwah in regards to the fact that West Mahwah is also the big cut-through into New York when we have traffic. So due to that issue, the chief of police and the mayor has done traffic studies. I know not only have they done them in West Mahwah for our issue, but they've also done them on Franklin Turnpike and other locations to determine stop signs, lights, etc. With that being said, I went to the New Jersey State Safe Routes to School through Rutgers University, which is a great resource for people like me who know nothing about New Jersey state rules with transportation. And in that site, I was able to gain a lot of insight and actually reached out to somebody and have a representative contacting me next week to go over what our options are. Some of those options include walkability studies, where they actually send crews out to Mahwah to walk the routes, which are the shortest routes to school, as you know, which is what they determine whether or not you're bus eligible. I think at that point, a majority of those homes that are within that 2 and 2.5 mile radius are going to fail. And I can give you an example. So from West Mahwah, my children have to cross 202. Now we know what 202 looked like probably 20 years ago. Certainly doesn't look like how it does now. The crosswalk down on Brook Street, where you would have to cross, because right now the whole entire sidewalk on the right side of 202 heading south is completely covered with snow. So they'd have to cross 202, which at one point becomes a blind curve. Now even though we have a crosswalk placed, a cross guard placed there, if you don't know the route and you're coming off Route 17 because your GPS rerouted you onto 202, you're going to fly right through there. So I've asked also the chief of police, everybody's my buddy in this town now, I've asked them to put a light there because I don't understand how there is not a traffic signal, especially with all the traffic we have coming off 17. With that being said, you also have, and I know I have people here who live in the Cragmere section, where there's absolutely no sidewalk. And when you have leaf piles and when you have snow piles, and you're a working mom and dad, and your children have to walk to school, guess what? They're walking in the street. The children who live off 202 on the north side, on the other side of 287, if they have to make that walk down 202 right now, there is no place for them to walk, and that's Route 202. When they make that right to go up to West Ramapo Avenue to head to Ridge Road, there's no sidewalk there either. So those are just a few of the sections that fit within that 2 and 2.5 mile radius. Now I went on to the site and they actually do have a study that they printed in 2012, which is entitled Dwindling Budget Spring Busing Blues. This is a statewide study that they did. And I think that Mahwah would definitely fall under the need for hazardous busing. And I know that you're restricted due to budgeting. I know this is going to be a very big issue for all of you to have to make this decision because it is going to come down to money. I know that a bus costs as much as a teacher's salary. But I'm wondering if there ever was an analysis done on those buses that are, like the one that comes through my neighborhood that has empty seats. It was maybe 3 more kids that didn't meet that criteria that then were forced to walk or get driven. If you did an analysis and figured out, well, how many buses do we have that have empty seats that can pick up this many children? How many buses would we really need to add? Would it be high school? And then those children who are in the senior year of high school don't need busing, right? So you cut off those children. I'm just wondering how many buses we would actually have to add and therefore have to add to our budget to get busing to all children. Until Mahwah, which believe me, I've gone to already multiple council meetings about adding sidewalks. It's extremely expensive. Just for, I think it was 1 block, it was $40,000 to add brand new sidewalks. There's absolutely no way the Township of Mahwah is ever going to approve to replace or add sidewalks all through Cragmere, all down Route 202, all through those areas where there is no place for our children to walk. And the other thing, and I'm just going to, I know I can go over the time here, the other thing I was going to say is we do have a sustainable Mahwah program, and that relates to the environment. And when you have the stream of cars driving your children to school on a daily basis, and I'm sure they can do the vehicle studies on that as well, not only are you increasing the emissions problems, you're increasing accident rates, because in the study that was done by Safe Routes to School, children who are driven to school, who are bused to school, are much safer than those who are driven even in a family car. And walking, forget it. The statistics go way up, as you probably could tell. But I'm just trying to say that from a sustainable, you know, it would be better that they're bused. You don't have that 3 mile line, which I'm exaggerating, but you don't have the line on Ridge Road. you know, I mean, I just think that there should be definitely a call to action that we provide hazardous busing. And, you know, if you look under that study, and if you go and look under New Jersey State Rules, which is NJSA 18A 39-1.5, that's exactly what it falls under. Hazardous busing includes population density, traffic volume, average vehicle velocity, existence or absence of sufficient sidewalk space, roads and highways that are winding or have blind curves. Mahwah totally fits that. Roads and highways with steep inclines and declines, drop-offs that are in close proximity to a sidewalk, bridges or overpasses. So if you look at all of the requirements that they suggest a town should provide hazardous busing for its students, Mahwah definitely falls. And just one last thing, I actually did start a petition on change.org, and that was really only shared through social media because I wanted to have my own ideas to what people in Mahwah really felt. And out of about maybe 1,100 people that this was seen by, we had 300 people sign the petition. So I'm sure if it led to the point where we had to vote on it, I don't know how it would end up, but I've even gotten emails from parents that are provided busing, and they say that they feel so bad when they see kids walking that they want to stop and drive them. So, thank you.
All right. Motion to adjourn. John Glenn and Doug, thank you. All in favor? Aye.